Okay, cool. Let's do a clap sync in 3, 2, 1. And now we get to talk about wood dust for pretty much 45 minutes, I assume. Should we sprinkle in a little bit of what we're doing outside of that, and then just blast wood dust for the rest of the show? Because we when did we get back? It wasn't last Monday. It was the Monday before. Last Monday, yeah. Yeah, from what can only be described as a successful show. I think we can agree on that, right?
Absolutely. It was fun.
Yeah. We hosted the Woodworker Games, where we got to hang out with April, Jimmy, and Matt, and Patrick Holcomb, Clancy Moore, Matt Black, Mark Dana, and I'm going to forget people throughout this show, and I really apologize. But there's just the whole team, the whole crew. One of the TimberCon guys, Gio, I'm not sure what his surname is, but he was just this lifesaver. Yeah, there was some dramas with technical stuff, and he would just come in. Everyone on the team was just amazing. And
everybody, every show needs a Gio. Gio was a superstar. Yeah.
So maybe a good way to start, Bryan, if you had to pinpoint a particular moment that was just the best, so what that highlighted and made the weekend for you, what do you think it would be?
For me, it'd probably be the first project. Because I think we were all standing on stage going, oh my God, how is this going to work? How's it going to work with the sound levels and machinery? And are they actually going to be able to build, what was it, six things? Seven things. 4 day like one, that. 3 day two. How are they going to make that in 2 days? And obviously there was, a bit of prep beforehand with glue ups and things like that. But a lot of the design was still happening on the fly during the day. And I thought the stool thing was really good. It was probably the only real true bit of furniture, wasn't it? Was there any? Oh, no, there was the hallway stand.
The hallway stand things, yeah.
But I just really like that a stool is such a simple project, like a milking stool. But how can you make it different? And I loved Patrick's project. Patrick
Absolutely.
And Clancy and April's thing. It was really clever, really well executed in such a tight time frame.
That last 3 minutes of that build was like the epitome of an awesome show. It's like this crunch time moment, trying to do this, routing a dovetail key live on stage with 300 people watching you, and it was make or break. They were down to the wire, like a negative 2 or 3 seconds finishing, and if we could manufacture that for every project going forward, it would be brilliant.
That was going to be our grand designs moment. It was either going to all come falling down. But to describe the project for anybody who hasn't seen it, they went with a 4-legged stool, which is not technically a milking stool. People kept pointing out, but it was a stool, and the legs were tapered from a circle to a square profile at the bottom, and then they had a routed dovetail key that held everything in place, routed through the top. And as you say, you get one shot at that because it's a dovetail bit. You can't do 2 passes. It was boom, get it done. And Patrick was sweating a bit, but it was really cool. So for me, apart from the obvious highlight of getting to meet you guys at last, and getting to meet people that I've known on YouTube for, I don't know, a decade in Jimmy and April's case, but and to meet Matt as well. Matt's I probably blew smoke up his arse a bit in his podcast, in the interview with him, but he's probably my favorite YouTuber. I love watching his videos, so it was really cool. What about you guys?
And we can probably pull the curtain back a little bit on this now that the show's over. But
not too far, Robin, not too far.
There's only so much prep and production that can go into this. There's so much stuff that's going to happen on the fly. So with what you're saying there, Bryan, on that first, that morning on that first project at 9 a.m., we started the show, and there was a lot of just figuring it out. How are we going to work this with the crowd? How are we going to make this happen? The brief was very vague going into this, and we, the 3 hosts, we were sort of given the reins to just say, turn it into a show, make it happen, and which was amazing. I loved that, but it was yeah, there was a lot of figuring it out in that first stool.
Yeah, I must say, I had no clue that the show was going to rest entirely on our shoulders to such an extent until we kind of were handed our microphones that morning, and it was like, oh, we are it. Like, if we're not talking, trying to make this interesting, it's going to just flop. So it was a big rush of pressure on that first project, and we've kind of found our feet pretty quickly and turned it into a live podcast, and I think it worked really well.
Once we found the groove, it was good. By day 2, it wasn't even a thing. We were just in it. There was a particular moment where we just fell into an impromptu Q&A with April Wilkerson, and that worked so well because essentially the show turned into this. The April Q&A, while in the background woodworking was happening, and you could feel all the pressure just came off all the guys working, and that bit worked really well. But all of that was organic.
It's fucking hard. Like if we're putting questions to people while they're working, like that's a pretty hard thing. So I agree. I think it was good that you had the visual stimulation of people working on things, but then people are able to ask questions to, like guys at the top of the content making game on how to get their business running and multiple revenue streams, all that kind of stuff. Like it was really fascinating.
Yeah, because the crowd was a lot of content creators.
Yeah, I was shocked.
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, so that was really cool that April could talk directly to those questions. We talked about that in the debrief after the event. For the next one that we do, 2024, we need to figure out a better way of getting the guests, so Jimmy Diresta and April Wilkerson, up on stage building and talking together. Because when Jimmy's on the lathe turning things, he's concentrating on the lathe turning things. Right. He's not able to have a conversation. So we're gonna try and rein that in a bit.
Yeah, one of the moments that I recall fondly was actually the end of the second day. I think they were making the chairs, and right at the end, April had presented her chair, Jimmy has presented his chair, and Jimmy's chair is a bit bland compared to what April presented. Bland is quite a nice way to say it. And it was fairly obvious who was going to win this in any kind of competition, but then I forget, one of his team members come on and they add a little cup holder and they add a little phone holder onto the arms of the chair, and it was like there's this big roar from the crowd, and it was like just a really nice moment where he still hadn't won it, but it was just a nice little touch, like, okay, we tried to do something special.
Yeah, and those are all the things that you can't plan for. We could squash this down to the nth degree and make it an entire production, like a performance, but then you would start to lose those moments, and obviously you've got to be careful that it's not just a shit show and everything's just going wrong. But that moment, and the other one with the cabinets where the guys accidentally stuck the cabinet doors and they couldn't open, complete mess up. But it was just the most beautiful, most comedic gold moment. Yeah.
So
that for me with the doors, that was the best part of the show. You could feel the crowd coming up on stage with us, and everyone just having a laugh. It was amazing.
So again, to describe, that's quite a hard visual thing to explain to someone, but it was a dartboard cabinet or something, or a toy, like a game toss cabinet, and there were spacer blocks put in to hold the doors in place to drill the pins, because they didn't have any hardware. They had to make their own hardware, so they had to use brass pins as the pivot point. But then, they stood it up on stage, everyone clapped, and I think it was Clancy went, "Oh shit!" Oh no, it might have been, I think it was Mark. And anyway, the doors, because of the pivot point on the door, they weren't allowed to swing backwards. So we had to sort of get something in and wedge the spacer blocks down and rip the doors open, and it was very funny.
But it was also highlighted by the fact that this was our longest project, so it had taken them 3 hours. Mm-hmm. It was also the end of the day, so everyone was tired, and it was just the way that penny dropped for everyone. first the guys on stage, then everyone on stage, and then it was beautiful. I loved it.
That was fun. It was just fun, and that was a cool little impromptu shit. What are we going to do? Because we have to show the money shot, so to speak, of the doors actually opening after all that time and effort, explaining how they were going to work. And so it was a bit of frantic clawing with the Leatherman or something just to get that piece of wood out of the cabinet, pry the door open, and then that's all marvel at the wonderful thing. So yeah.
I thought we could also talk about the 3 international guests as well, because we got the privilege of hanging out with all 3 of them multiple times leading up to the show. So we first were on a call with Jimmy in February. It was either beginning of March or February.
Yeah, I think it was Feb, yeah.
Then it was Matt Estlea after that, and then April was quite soon, just before the show. So we met all of these people, and depending on who we spoke to, there was a lot of there's when you're talking to people like Jimmy Diresta and April Wilkerson, where they are doing high level corporate sponsorship deals, you don't necessarily even talk to the person until the interview. You talk to their people, and their people talk to them, and then. So it was quite strange that, and the point I'm trying to make is, when we saw them at Wood Dust, they were just the nicest, down to earth, normal people. Did you guys feel that way as well?
There was no pretentious air about anybody. It was just no one knows what we're doing, and lead us, and let's have some fun. That was it.
There was a particular moment on the second day at lunch. We were sitting having lunch around one of the tables. We were all there, and we were sitting with Jimmy, and I think we were talking about something. It was either political or border restrictions or something. Anyway, and in my head, I took a step back, and I thought, here we are, just all hanging out with mates with Jimmy Diresta across the table, and we're all just. And it's just such a strange thing, because I think at our older age we don't idolize people like kids idolize A-list celebrities. We don't do that anymore. We're old enough to not do that. But there was still a moment where I thought, shit, 4 years ago, Jimmy Diresta was untouched. You couldn't talk to the man, and here we are just hanging out as mates. I was just so blown away by, particularly with Jimmy and April, because they've been doing it a lot longer. Just how normal they are, and these are people who've literally done Netflix shows.
Yeah, and essentially everything you just said, nice things about Jimmy. Obviously, you meant April as well, but I wanted to highlight, like, April is just the nicest person. She just wants to learn. She wants to have fun, and she's like very open-minded to like learning, experiencing someone else's point of view. Case in point. All the timbers they were working with were the Australian timbers, and they had no clue how to handle them and what to expect. And it was interesting, just watching their frustrations and everything with trying to deal with those harder timbers. And yeah, it was such a fun time.
Even like seeing April use hand tools and things, and she openly admits that she's never used a router plane before, and Matt was helping her with it, and. Like, it's really refreshing to find somebody that's, of that caliber that says, I don't know how to do this. Can you show me how to do that? I think it just really reassures everyone that nobody knows everything.
We're all just people.
And man, she has so much energy.
Yeah. And give her a topic and she can talk, and it's great. Yeah. She could just talk on a topic, and you can just kind of go and have a water break while April takes over for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Talking about woods, just a quick shout out to Matt Estlea. I hope his scars are healing, because he got impaled by so many splinters on this trip. With that, I think it was the messmate got him a number of times, and he commented on how splintery the wood. Now again, I don't know if that was just the particular board that he was using, but he commented on how splintery our timber is. Anything else you guys want to mention about it?
Pity you guys didn't get to spend a bit more time in Melbourne. I reckon that would have been cool, sort of showing you guys around a few other makers' workshops and things. I think next time we'd maybe factor that in and just try to make sure there's an extra day.
Yeah, I think so. I was under the weather for most of the weekend, so I wasn't having the best time of my life, just kind of pushing through, feeling a bit shit. But so I still had plenty of fun, but absolutely would have loved... if I did it again, I'd come for the Thursday, Friday beforehand just to hang out and do whatever we could, because we were, 7 in the morning till 6 at night just working.
It was pretty
Saturday,
full.
Sunday.
It was a lot of talking.
Yeah. There was no actual time off for us, and so it was definitely a working trip. It was not a holiday.
I remember at the start we were discussing, can we do a live podcast or something at the end on Sunday? Yeah. I think you were asleep in bed at about 5:30, Joey, right?
No, I was just straight from the event back to the hotel room into bed. That was it.
Yeah. Jamie, my wife, said to me, "Why didn't you go out and explore Melbourne, after last night?" And I just said to her, I went back, I got something to eat on the way back to the hotel, and I climbed into bed with my food and fell asleep because just absolutely smashed. But yeah, now that we know the format and we've got a rough idea of how it's going to work, next time we can, as you say, Bryan, that's a really good idea to travel around Melbourne a bit and see some of the local makers. The show will be more polished next year. We will prepare things better. Just everything is just going to be better next year when we do it again.
So put it in your calendar, people, because apparently it's happening. So make a note, start saving, because it's going to be another fun weekend.
Yeah. And maybe, we said at the time, make sure you give Timbicon your feedback on the show if you attended. Tell them what we did right, what we did wrong, any guest suggestions and things. I'd love to see a few more local makers involved as well.
Yeah.
We're blessed to have so many good makers right on our doorstep. A lot of them were running masterclasses and things, but I think it would be cool to get them up on stage, even if it was just for one build or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be my feedback.
And a little bit of talk from the debrief, which is still, everything's up in the air, of course, but this conversation did come up. We might be coming to a city near you next time. So if everything goes to plan, you might not have to travel too far.
Watch out, Townsville.
I'll leave it at that, yeah.
I think we should probably look at Port Douglas maybe as a wood dust destination. That'd be nice, because it was fucking freezing the weekend you guys were here.
Yeah.
It's been lovely since you left, believe it or not, but.
Well, you say that. I saw April try to get a golf game in and it was raining.
Oh, really?
She was talking about it the whole weekend and she said, hopefully it doesn't rain, and it literally rained the day she went to go play. Anyway, so life back in the workshop. Joey, what's been going on? Straight back into things?
Well, yeah, I knew obviously the trip was coming up. I ended up taking a week off. Had some time with the family, saw my brother well as in Oz. So I had a full week off, Wednesday to Wednesday. And I had planned it, and I knew in my calendar the trip was happening. But it was about when I was on the plane coming back, and I just got this wave of stress and oh my God, I haven't done anything for a week. And, and I had gotten a couple of emails from a client that the job I'm working on, and they had just mentioned how far along the renovation is. And I was like, whoa, that's way quicker than I thought it was going to be. I've only just started this particular cabinetry job, and I need to pull my finger out. So I got back the first morning. I just came straight down to the workshop and started trying to make it look like there was progress. And I've just been to site this morning to see the job, and it's moving along nicely, but we've still got 5 weeks up my sleeve, and I'll need all of that to get the job done. So that's good. I'm happy with where we are. And here's a tip.
You don't have an assistant anymore, do you?
No, so it's just me. So
yeah, so it's
it
just
is making
onto your shoulders.
Yeah, for a job like this, I would typically rely on a second pair of hands for a lot of sanding, putting shaker doors together, things that are fairly systemized and streamlined, and that typically just takes a lot of time. You could just stand at your bench all day just making doors and sanding them and fitting them into a cabinet, and I'm trying to do that while I'm trying to work out critical measurements and work out how appliances fit into cabinets. And yeah, so I'm going back a bit in time with working out my time management in the workshop and trying to streamline even further my processes to actually make things happen in a one-man band type situation. But I thought I would share this tip because, like I said, I was at the site, looked at some plumbing in the wall, and they're just about to start putting plasterboard on in this job. And I was like, that plumbing looks like it's kind of in the right place. So I'll just take the measurements just to make sure. Got back to my workshop, had a look at the drawings, and yeah, the plumbing was out by about 300 mil in the wrong place.
Jeez.
And they're just about to put the plasterboard up, so I'm straight back on the phone to the site manager. Look, you got to shift this. Okay, fine. Work through the details, but typically it's not a cabinet maker's job to check that. You give the job, either the foreman or the plumber on Sparky directly, give them the plans and say, look, this is what's happening. It's got measurements on it. This is where your pipes have got to be. And no one to double check.
So they work to you. You don't work around them.
No.
As a cabinet maker.
And that's a little bit stressful because your measurements have got to be right. At some point, you've actually got to say, this is the gospel measurement, and everyone's going to work to this particular line. The plumbing has to be here because it's going to fall inside the right part of the cabinet. And it's typically not your job to double check it, but double bloody check that stuff's in the right place, because it's very easy to fix it when there's no plasterboard on the wall. And trying to do that after the fact is an absolute nightmare. So just one of those little things.
If it's not your job and something does go awry, who does that fall onto? The project or the builder?
Well,
if they don't have a project manager.
In this case, I'm dealing with a project manager, so it probably would fall onto the builder's shoulders. The builder's just going to go, hey, plumber, I gave you these drawings and this is a measurement and you didn't follow the measurement. So you better fix this. And I went straight back to the drawings I gave them. Yep, I gave them the right measurement. We could see how they made a mistake. It was a fairly obvious, if not, someone wasn't thinking at the time, but they made the mistake. We could see how it happened. Now they're going to fix it. But it's just one of those things, because that would completely put a hold on that part of the job, which puts a hold on me getting paid at the end of the day. So definitely worth checking your services in the right place, even though it's not really your job.
How about you, Brian? What you been up to?
Oh my God, I'm so busy. I've just got like four half-finished projects in the workshop, so every bench is just covered in crap. So I'm trying to do a bit on each one a day, but I would really like just to knock one of them off this week. Got a couple of coffee tables, a dining table, 20 serving boards for a restaurant that I've done before, but they need to be finished by the end of the week. And then I'm starting on, I've got John Wardle's table, that clover table that I did for the exhibition.
You have to do another one.
Yeah. For him, for his house.
So.
Are you excited? Because you're obviously going to be able to improve on the process, or are you just
I am
shitting
excited.
yourself?
I am excited because I know it can be done now. Shitting myself a little bit because I remember how much work it was. And he sent through a sketch yesterday, day before, and it was entitled Simpler Clover Table, and I saw the simpler and I'm like, oh, right, okay, cool. And I looked at his changes and I'm like, but that's more complicated. So there's a few technical issues and things on how we're going to deal with expansion. He wants us like one top as opposed to a split top, and with the legs coming through obviously there's no room for expansion and contraction. So whether we do the clovers as an inlay in the top of the table and then have the legs just floating in a sort of an oversized rebate in the bottom, so it looks like they're coming the whole way through, but there's still room to move. It's gonna be fun times.
It's an interesting little challenge, that leg detail. My first thought is to have the legs go all the way through and then have an oversized hole in the table and then have some kind of expandable inlay. Like, my first thought would be like black silicone or something that fills that gap around the and you'd have like a black outline or something of the table leg through the top, would let it move a little bit, but that might be too much hassle.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he first gave me the sketch, I think he wanted like 1/4 of a mil tolerance between the legs, like a 1/4 mil gap the whole way around. I'm like, oh my God. So
that's insanity.
Yeah, it probably wasn't far off that. I reckon we got it to within about 1/2 mil, so 1/4 mil each side. But trying to do it with a solid top is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got him coming into the workshop at some point this week to discuss how we're going to achieve that.
And would you do that if you, for such a big job, would you just kind of clear all your other work and just work on that one press, like how long it's going to take you, maybe 2 months or something?
I reckon, yeah. I mean, there might be a small coffee table job or something when things are in clamps that I might be able to work on, but yeah, that will occupy me for probably the best part of 2 months.
Yeah.
I think last time...
mentally you want...
Yeah, there are a lot of tricky things in it. And I remember last time I did it, I was making one of the Yakita tables, the burnt coffee tables at the same time. And at the end of one day, I made a horrendous mistake and plunged dominoes through an external face on the frame. And there wasn't enough leather wood, so having to create veneers and... Fuck, it was a nightmare. So yeah, I really do want my brain fixed on one thing. Like, it's kind of fortunate where the pieces that I'm working on now at the minute, like, I've got multiple pieces, but they're all things I've made multiple times. So I kind of know the steps I've got to go through. Whereas because I've only made it once and it was so involved, I will have to constantly remind myself of all the different steps and the different jigs. And yeah. But I took quite a few notes when I was building it. So hopefully they come in handy.
Have you got some jigs from it?
Yeah. I've got... I'm not sure if you saw my... Did I even post it on my Instagram? I can't remember. God, I got to get better with Instagram. But the jigs that I make for the shaper, where it's like...
yes.
Built up MDF, and then you slot the timber in and all the file information stored on it. So I've got those made up for my Yakita table and John's table, just because of the amount of work and the tolerances are so fine on it that, I thought it might be an idea to keep that just in case I needed to make them again.
Nice. That's one of the benefits of doing YouTube. The number of times I've gone back to, and not even necessarily for a particular project in its entirety, but there are joinery methods or something that I've gone back. How did I do that? That's right, I did it in this project. And you just go back and reference it.
Yeah, I do that quite a lot.
I try to take so many photos and videos of things that if I have the slightest inkling I'm going to be doing them again, photograph them. But what about yourself, Robin? What do you got on?
So I've got this. When I moved back from Tassie, I brought up this big pile of celery top pine, and they are these short blocks. They're probably about 500 or 600 mil long, about 120 square, and they're at that size where you can do stuff with them, but they're not lengths. You're not going to be making tables. So I had this idea when I was given them. I'm going to make a range of homeware, kitchenware type projects, and then dedicate an entire shop to it. So I'll call it the Celery Top Shop, and it's just going to be a line of manufactured stuff that I can, this wood was given to me, so anything I make is profit. Obviously time, but I'm not paying for my time at the moment. But the idea was to really try and hone in the commercials of my quote unquote business. I'm not doing this full time yet, but this is a good exercise for me to say, here's something, here's some raw material. How much profit can I turn this into and make for it? So now I'm just working on simple things, like at the moment a cookbook stand for it. So batching out, which again is something I haven't done before. I've always made one-off a chair, a table. It's all one-off pieces. But this is now trying to rethink it in a manufacturing perspective, making 5 of them at once. What's the best approach? That kind of thing.
How have you found that process?
Terrible. I'm forcing myself to get into it because I'm filming it as well, which I'll talk about in a sec. But I'm forcing myself to have to get into the workshop and go sand 5 sets of pieces because it's just, from all the people we've interviewed, I really get the idea that there are 2 camps, 2 very separated camps. You are either a manufacturer or you're a commission builder. And I can see why the people who don't do manufacturing don't want to do it, because it is just, it's not bad. I mean, it's not bad, but from a YouTube content creation perspective, it is just a hard sell.
Like if you look
really
at Matt's marking pen thing, you know, how taxing that was for him. I think, you're right. Yeah. Manufacturing or doing batch products and things for videos might not work, but I don't know. When I look at it in terms of, like, say the serving boards that I'm working on at the minute, so they're for a fairly high-end restaurant. I designed them years ago, and these are a rebuild. So the first boards lasted 6 years, which is pretty good for a commercial kitchen. When I look at the finances involved in, like, say, a table for me, a dining table, there might be $2,500 worth of timber, something like that. And the piece might sell for $7,000, something like that, $7,000 to $8,000. So your timber is always going to be between 20 and 30%, something like that, your material cost. For those serving boards, I'm doing them in laminated ply. So like BC plywood, rip them on the edge, glue them together. So the material cost in those boards is about, there's brass as well, so there's about $160, $170 worth of material, equating to a $3,000 job.
Wow. Yeah.
So batching stuff from a business perspective, I find like you can make so much more money than doing a one-off commission. Like even if you make even if you make 2 of the same coffee table, like if I was to make 2 pinch benches instead of making 1, the extra material cost versus the time saved in setting up jigs and cutlass and things like that, I should be doing
negligible. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've started doing, or at least seriously thinking about, maybe I should just make a second one of these while I'm at it. I think we've talked about it before as well. The problem with me is that I don't really typically have anywhere to put the thing, so I've got to try and sell it. And what I have found, and I think we've talked about this, is that whenever I build something on spec, I never can get the price for it that I can when I build it on a commission, because the person really wants it way more, who's come to me directly, and they're willing to pay for the thing because they've fallen in love with it or the idea of it. And then the person who just sees it as a for sale on spec, they're like, yeah, okay.
And then you don't want to be a dick by selling it at a lower price than the person who's actually commissioned you to build it.
Yeah, and so I find that a bit of a tricky scenario.
And the competition that I have, for example, with this cookbook stand, is a $30 product from Target. I will never beat that. And as you say, Joey, I'm not going to the person who wants that product. I'm trying to pitch it to someone. So in my case, because this timber was all free, and my time, because I have a full-time job, my time doesn't cost anything. It's not really a gamble. It's just about how far you want to take it. But I can imagine in your scenario, inventory is not making you any money.
Robin, where are you looking at starting your pricing? What are you going to base it on? Are you going to base it on what you think the thing is worth, or are you looking at if you did have to? So you got the timber for free.
Yeah.
So if you did have to buy the celery top and your labor and all that kind of stuff, and working in a margin, and then dividing it by the number of boards, which way you start? Or are you going, well, I could probably sell this for $55-$60, and then I've got to try to work out how to make it for $55? Which way are you going?
Yes, interesting.
Because I'm going to be selling these, or I want to sell them nationally, not internationally.
Yep.
My starting point's actually been postage.
Yep.
So how do I design this so that I can post it? So, and I wanted to ask you guys about this.
That's a good idea.
How much do you ask the customer to assemble? Because obviously things like IKEA, you can do that. But the more assembly, the smaller I can pack it down, the less on postage, the more I can bring the price down.
Well, I think Bryan will attest to the fact that the bigger the object, the more assembled it is, the easier it is to break in the shipping process. Mm-hmm. So I think I would try and design something to be as flat packable as possible. And then I would probably work backwards from that. Say, this size postage box or postage bag costs this much. I need to make whatever it is fit inside this, and I need it to be this flat. And then that's my parameters, and I just have to get creative.
And then maybe it's how it goes together. Like, I think a customer might, if you put it together with using screws or something like that, it might downgrade the product. Whereas if it's something that slots together, or it's got some clever joinery, or
absolutely,
like a sliding dovetail sort of slot with a stop in it, and you just sort of slide it together and clicks in, then I think they can appreciate that you've actually made the thing rather than it being manufactured. Well, it's still manufactured, but not like mass produced in an IKEA factory.
So I was going for I don't know what the technical term is, but it's those hex head cabinets, they've got a really big head.
Yep.
Into a threaded rod. So you chuck an Allen key in the bag as well, so they've got everything they need, and that was the route I was going to go. Or do I build it fully and then spend more money on the packaging to sort of reinforce the product? So then there's less design considerations. There's I just throw more money at it.
Packaging can get expensive. I remember looking at it with my star map tables. I was going to get some custom boxes and custom foam and everything cut. And I think unless your business is set up to do it, like I know Gem, we always reference Gem in this show, but the way Like Butter do their packaging and things like that, they've got a big CNC with a cutter so they can cut foam to size. They cut their boxes to fit. Everything's custom made. The second you start outsourcing that for low volume runs, it can get mega expensive.
Yep.
So it's a tricky one.
But so that's essentially where I'm starting is postage. What's the cost of the postage? How much profit can I add on top of that within reason?
I really like that challenge. I really like the idea of trying to design something that fits in, like,
around an Ozpost box.
Yeah, an Ozpost box or an A4 like bubble wrap type postage bag, and you might have like 50 mil of thickness that you can fill that bag up with, and then just like from there, sky's the limit. Just make a thing that fits in it that can like transform magically into something else. It's a really cool little brain teaser, I think.
And then it's a tricky one of whether you pass the postage cost on to the customer as well, or do you just up the price of the thing and say free postage?
Which is why I want to do nationally.
Yeah, it'd be
so
easier.
then I don't need to worry about that. Yeah, it's national. Then I can just absorb it into the cost, do a nominal amount to say.
Presumably, the further away the shipping is, the more expensive. And if you were delivering into Townsville, you could go and hand deliver it, and you save all that postage money, right? I mean, that's
hopefully it's all local. Yeah, that'd be good.
Even if you look at doing markets and things like that, like say you get a market stand and you have that and one other product, and you have no postage costs, and you're just taking sales on the day.
Now, what I don't want is for this to turn into if it comes down to markets, I mean, I wouldn't say no, but the idea with this is it should just be in the corner of my workshop, a pile of stuff.
Almost
and
passive.
Anytime an order comes in, passive, it goes out. It's similar to what Matt Estlea does with his tools. and so hopefully, it doesn't come down to me actually having to hard sell this at markets. I want this to just go out by itself. But where it's worked in with the video, which is it's actually tied in quite well. And talking about Matt Estlea, I got a bit of the inspiration from him. I finally gone ahead with the next tools that I'm going to purchase, which are and now I feel I can talk about it a bit more publicly. It's going to be a 16-inch thicknesser from Sherwood and an 8-inch, the big boy jointer. So these are tools, Joey, we've talked about, these are tools that I will probably never need to upgrade again unless I go industrial, but then I'm running a massive workshop at that point. So the last of my budget, the last of my credit card has gone into these tools, and then I have nothing. I don't even have a credit to dip into. It's gone. It's all gone, which I don't mind because these are tools that I'm going to keep forever, and that's fine. But so from the video perspective, the video starts, because I've started working on the edit. The video starts with me saying, I'm in financial trouble. I need to sell this pile of celery top pine to pay for my business, because otherwise I'm stuck. So hopefully, even though it's manufacturing, which is pretty boring, hopefully that will give the video a bit of drama.
It's a cool idea.
Are you going to bring in things like the packaging and the sales and how you costed it into the video?
I was going to right at the end. So I need to before I buy the domain and all of that, I need to build a whole bunch of products, maybe 3 or 4 of them, and then it will come time to actually start selling them and get to that point. Yeah.
So you're going to go the full solo website as well, like a separate. You're not going to sell them through Robin Lewis. You're going to sell them through
separate website. Yeah, whole domain. All the products go there. It'll be a commercial website. So one of these, I don't know what. I'm with Squarespace. They've got a commercial
Shopify
aspect
or whatever.
to it. Yeah, and then once they're sold, then I sell the domain and it's done. And then that's it. That was a project. And then it's over.
Like that. It's a really
you're
cool
not gonna keep it going.
Well, I guess depending on the demand, but the idea is this is a pile of celery top pine.
Yeah.
Right.
So when that pile is completed, it's done.
Yeah.
And then I'll move on to something else.
How many do you reckon you're going to get out of that stack of timber?
Well, it's funny. I looked at that stack and thought, this is not going to go very far. I think I've used about 4 blocks of about 30 or 40, and I've made 5 cookbook stands out of 4 blocks. So, and it's taken me weeks and weeks and weeks to get through this. So I don't think I'm going to have any issue with material. Because of my full-time job, I can't actually get through it quick enough. So this has gone from what would hopefully be a 6-month project to it's probably going to be going on a year plus, potentially even just in the background. I'll just continue working on it.
That's cool.
When does the thicknesser arrive in the jointer?
I don't know yet. I've made purchase. I'm still waiting for a tracking number.
It is going to speed you up. I've been watching your videos trying to use the sander. Oh my god!
Oh my word! Of all the timbers to use as well, it's the most resiny timber that just gums up the sandpaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't wait.
So I reckon you're going to see your processes speed right up when you get a jointer.
Yeah. But how good is it to just be back in the workshop and talking to you guys about woodworking again? Oh,
it seems like it's been ages.
Man, I've been waiting for this, yeah.
Yeah, you were the man on the sidelines for a while.
Yeah, so good. Anyway, we've come up to time. Is there anything else you guys wanted to chat about before we run off?
Not this week. Not for me.
Not yet. No, we haven't got any Joey stories, any client nightmare stories yet. We'll save those for the next one.
Not yet.
Speaking of that, we're going to be speaking of that, we're going to be going back to the schedule's just been all jumbled up with wood dust. It's been all over the show. So we'll go back to a fortnightly now show, and we're going to hopefully get some good guests in this season.
Yes.
We've spoken to a few of them, and they are keen. So, yeah, come back every fortnight and you will have a new Shop Stool podcast.
Cool.
Righto. Cool, guys. have a good week, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
See you guys.